Howdy, everyone, and welcome to the start of the mini season for 2025. As you can see on screen, we have the Japanese Grand Touring cars from the Group 3 category. And without further ado, let's commence the replay. We have got Petrolhead on pole position with Doug Barrow alongside on the front row. It's an all Supra GT500 front row. And we are underway for the 45-minute sprint race with Petrolhead getting a decent start, pulling already ahead of Doug. So Doug having to tuck in for the slipstream. Razor also searching around for an extra toe into turn one. Presumably no contact as of yet. There is obviously being a street circuit, crashes are not too far behind, but Petrolhead already building that gap ahead of Doug. And Razor, potentially Razor going for a move there into turn two, which might have wrong-footed Doug, and now as they file their way through the S's now for the first time down to the hairpin, the first true overtaking opportunity for those behind, as Mike now making up a position, trying to go up the inside of myself into the hairpin there, still side by side on the exit. So at the moment the Supra seems to be the car to have off the start, as there seems to be 3 Supras in the top 5 and no NSXs as of yet. There was only 3 different types of cars on the grid for this race, as there's only 3 GT500s in the Group 3 class in Gran Turismo 7. And Superboy getting very close to the wall, maybe even a little bit of contact against the wall, certainly contact against his rival Soccer in the Supra he was battling. I believe Soccer is known as Astra on PlayStation. He is a sub-in for this race. So it's nice to have that we've got reserve drivers to help keep the field nice and healthy, give us plenty of action and competition. As we round the final corner on the end of lap 1, Petrolhead still maintaining that lead, but he's got a half-second penalty for track limits, presumably at the final chicane. So that is going to put Doug, I was going to say Doug is going to be put all over the back of him, but he already is challenging into turn 1, a slight squeeze into the wall, but I think everyone's still escaping without damage. And as the 2 Nissan GTRs in the background of myself and Hair Razor also looming large in the mirrors of these 2. As Doug Barrow going for a move round the outside of turn 4, down towards the hairpin again, a very unorthodox place to overtake, but he's managed to pull it off cleanly. And Petrolhead very fair there, giving a lot of space to the car on the outside. And now Petrolhead also under attack from myself as he goes very deep, almost into the pit lane there. So just trying to carry the extra momentum around the outside. It has actually paid off, as he's now managed to get a better exit than I have coming out of the traction zone there. There's a little bit of contact, a little bit of wheel banging as they come side by side through this section of the track. And I think there is a bit of contact there. Is there damage to my car? Yes, there is. So the contact on the front right corner, and there's even further contact in the tunnel as Mike gets spat into the wall. And I think that's 10/10 bar, making up a hell of a lot of positions there in all the chaos. Superboy certainly as well. So these 2 drivers who were in the mid-pack for the start of the race, keeping it clean through the tunnel, and have managed to make up their way into 3rd and 4th respectively. That puts also Razor back ahead of myself, so the GTR is now down to 5th and 6th. And all the while, this has actually helped Petrol massively, because now he can serve that penalty without being under too much threat from the car behind. I believe Superboy will have a potential run into the first corner, but I don't think he's got quite enough of overspeed in that NSX. As far on the defence into turn 1, trying to protect himself from Razor. And now I shape up for a move around the outside of turn 2, and I think I have just about pulled that off. So replicating what Doug managed to pull off a lap ago. So the GTRs once again swap positions. I have a track limits penalty as well at the chicane. So that's a little bus stop chicane, not really a bus stop, it's just really awkward. And there is a slow car. I think that is Petrol giving up position, so he believes he was at fault for the crash on the previous lap. So again, very sportsmanlike to give up the positions. But he potentially has cost himself a bit too much time there, as now Astro on the inside for the upcoming kink on the straight manages to pull fully ahead of that purple and black Supra. So now Astro, despite being only for a one-off race, he is making good progress as it stands at the moment. I believe he did also start P6, so he has actually managed to get his way back into the position that he started in. So as we complete the end of lap 3 now, so Doug in a world of his own after Petrolhead's penalty. Superboy getting all out of shape, coming through the bus stop, using those curbs to the best of the effect. I think there has just been a crash in the background. Superboy gets a track limits penalty, and I think if I just caught correctly, I have front end damage again. So I think there was a bit of a crash in the final chicane, which has cost me greatly again. Still setting a personal best lap time, but I think because there's been so many incidents so far, I just haven't had a clean lap. And TDC trying a move on the outside of Mike, so myself and Mike get massively affected by that crash coming through the tunnel. There wasn't quite enough of a good angle, but I think just with the natural understeer of these older cars, it just wasn't possible to run side by side through that chicane. And Mike now on the charge, trying to make up some of that ground that he lost due to that crash, pulling to the outside. Having TDC also sniffing up the inside as well, but nothing doing as of yet. TDC, very easy to get the power down in that NSX. It's got a very long first gear, so it does give the driver a lot of confidence. And TDC just tucking in for some slipstream as it stands. And bringing up the rear of the grid, we do have Simon and Happy Pappy. The GTR, not really the favoured car for this race. It does have quite a lot of torque, quite a lot of acceleration, but the suspension on the GTR is quite bad, it has to be said, even for the standard of these older cars. So potentially why the drivers in that GTR are just taking a little bit of time to get used to it. Superboy coming around the bus stop to serve his track limit penalty. Need to stop calling it a bus stop because that's not what it is. But Bar, just through keeping it clean and having a very quiet start to this race, and now moved his way up into second place, and on top of that setting the fastest lap as well. So Bar in a very good position, only 6 minutes into the race, and he's already managed to make up, well, managed to charge his way pretty much through half of the grid. So this is a very good start for Bar, and the Supra, from all the concerns from the drivers saying that it was the worst of 3 cars overall, the Supra at the moment seems to be the car that is displaying the most amount of aggression, the most amount of pace at the moment. So whether that is just down to driver ability in that car, we'll have to see as the race plays out. And Petrolhead having a look up the inside of Astro now, so he is now regrouped after giving up the positions earlier on, and is now tugging in for slipstream down the very long back straight here at Tokyo Expressway. And I think this is going to be quite the challenge to get the move done before the kink, so he might have to tuck in for the actual braking zone of turn 6, I believe it is. Well, turn 6 proper if you're not counting all the kinks down the straights. But I don't think he's quite got the run there, coming through the turn 6 as I just mentioned. I think, has he got, actually he's got enough of an exit speed down into the chicane, not really a place you want to run side by side, and sensibly Astro just tucks back in behind. So Petrol with the late braking manoeuvre now up into P5 as they start lap 6, with Doug Barris still maintaining that healthy lead that he's gained through other people's mistakes. And we are going to cut back to the battle between myself and Mike. This seemingly has been going back and forth because I swear I was in P7 the last time I checked. So once again the positions between the green and white Supra and the white and black GTR swap positions again. So it has been a good battle between us so far, despite the contact earlier on. But Mike on for a fastest lap at the moment, so the Supra does seem to be the car to have. Whether the recent updates to the game, the February update, may be favouring the Supra a little bit more, trying to balance it out a little bit. And TDC having a race here with Happy Pappy coming around the hairpin. So TDC just conceding that position to Simon in P9. And I think he has maybe served a penalty or something along those lines. So he is now trying to hang off from that GTR. But the GTR better than the NSX at its top end speed. So Happy Pappy will be looming large in the mirrors as they head towards the braking zone. But I think just again with the natural understeer, trying to follow someone so closely through there, it's not comfortable for the driver behind at all. So Superboy again with another track limits penalty, so he's really not liking that final chicane at all. And already as he pulls over to the inside line. That's going to give Razor and Petrol a clean run around the outside down the straight. And I believe Petrol is already sizing up a move into turn 1, just about cutting up Superboy. There was just about enough space there to get in between the two cars. So this battle between the three manufacturers coming through the first sector, and Razor seemingly having a good start as well. Similar approach to Doug Barron, just keeping it clean, keeping it out of everyone else's instance. And in the unfavoured GTR, he has managed to put himself in a podium position. He's actually building a bit of a gap as Petrolhead has to go defensive from Superboy slightly coming through the first sector. The benefit of that NSX being that because it's an MR car, it does have better rotation than the other two front engine cars. So it is going to show a little bit of weakness coming through the remainder of the lap, as it is mainly about outright straight line speed. So as you would expect, Superboy just dropping back a little bit from the bumper of Petrolhead, flying their way now through the tunnel. Petrolhead tucking in for slipstream once again. This seems to be his favourite part of the track to overtake in the last sector of the lap, and a little bit easier than the overtake he put on Astro at this time last lap, or this time a couple of laps ago, as he now up into the podium position. So it is a Supra 1-2-3 at the moment. Slight loss of the back end there for Supra from Petrolhead and also Astro in P6. So I will now take this moment, whilst there seems to be a little bit of a train forming at the moment, not too many battles. Superboy is trying to have a go at Razor on the outside, but I don't think it's quite going to pay off for him there. It is quite a long corner. But whilst it has died down a little bit, I will take this opportunity to explain the rules for this race as well. As I said, as the fire red lights went out, this is a sprint race, a 45-minute sprint race. So there's no mandatory tyre change and all requirements for filling up the tank with fuel. So it is just a sprint to the end, as Superboy diving up the inside to take back P4 from Razor. So Razor really taking the cautious approach of just not getting involved in any incidents whatsoever. So, which is probably the smart thing to do. They were only about a quarter of the way into the race, so you don't want to ruin it by getting caught up in someone else's accident. But as I was mentioning, it is medium compound tyres for the duration of the race. The tyre wear is set so that drivers who do look after their tyres earlier on in the race will have the race come back to them as the superior tyre grip, as I pull to the outside down the straight, moving up into P7. So once again a change of position between myself and Mike, and Razor having a look back up the inside of Superboy. I don't know what's going on with the camera there, we didn't really see the incident there. But Razor just sticking a nose up the inside, just letting Superboy know that he is there ready for an attack if there is another track limits penalty for that NSX. But yeah, just to clarify, no pit stops mandatory for this race. It is just a flat out race to the end, which is very different to what these cars would have been used for in real life. But as it is our mini season, we do believe that because they are not as fast as the Super GT cars, they do need to be on a slightly shorter format. So that is basically our format for the mini season. Razor now pulling to the outside with a very good exit, a very good switchback, and it's nearly 3 wide coming into the hairpin. Superboy going very deep, again almost ended up in the pit lane, similar to Petrolhead from the second lap of the race. And that has cost him dearly, as now Astro is actually the Supra who is on the attack. Coming down the back straight, I do believe the GTR will have the legs on that Supra coming down this back straight. But with the slipstream, can he do anything coming up to the kink? He has pulled out to the inside, but just backs off before there is another crash like lap 2. So Astro pulling out for the inside line for the braking zone. I believe he can get this done quite easily, but Razor hanging it very well around the outside, using a lot of the outside grip there just to get earlier exit speed, earlier on the throttle. And Mike, does he hit the wall in the background? I don't think he has, but he's lumbered his way over the curb, and that has cost him at least 3 or 4 seconds by doing that. I think there was a bit of a concertina effect coming into the chicane, as there naturally is when there's multiple cars fighting over the same piece of tarmac. So Astro now up into P4, which has been a very good start for him, despite him doing absolutely no practice for this race beforehand. This is a very impressive performance from him as it stands. And I have just caught on the track map as well that Petrolhead pulling out for a move on bar 27. Can he get the switchback here? It looks like he's searching for the switchback. It's going to be quite difficult. It naturally is quite difficult to overtake someone who is on similar pace to you and driving the identical car. So it is always quite difficult just to get that overlap on the driver. So this will be interesting to see how this plays out. Doug Barrow is still keeping a steady gap up front. No sign of him losing the lead as it stands, which is a typical Doug Barrow race. Once he gets into the lead, he is quite comfortable out there. But I think Petrad is trying his hardest to make Doug feel as if he is very uneasy, because that Supra in the hands of Petrad seems very quick at the moment. Nothing doing on this lap, I don't think. He's not quite ready for a lunge into the final chicane, and definitely not a lunge into the final corner, as if you get the line dead right, you could take this corner flat out, but potentially we will see that when the cars are running on their lighter fuel. And I don't know if I've given Doug the commentator's curse here, but that gap between Bar and Doug has shrunk on that lap. So whether Doug had to serve a track limit penalty, which I think many drivers will be doing that in the race. So the gap just has shrunk a little bit coming through the first sector here. So we'll see how that plays out as the slipstream train comes through the first sector as well, of 4th through to 7th, and almost pushing Razor. I am almost pushing him through that turn 4 sweeper as the two GTRs once again side by side coming down towards the hairpin. Razor just pulling ahead on the outside line, and which turns into the inside line for the hairpin. But I am looking for the switchback coming onto the power, and it's going to be side by side again through the kinks down the back straight. I don't know who's going to quite pay off here, because the straight does change favourable lines both ways down, but I think Razor just letting me go there, not really wanting to fight, as if the battle was to get too intense, we would lose touch with Astro up ahead. So I think that was the mentality as that move was conducted. And Superboy now getting in on the action, looking this way and that, both sides of the GTR, trying to find any way past, but nothing doing as of yet. Razor showing good defence now that he's just settled into the race. He's changed his mentality completely from just staying out of the way, staying out of instance, and now he wants to work with myself to try and catch up to Astro and the Supra up front. And the gap between the leaders is looking very close on the track map. And I think Doug, he definitely did have to serve a penalty at one point, and Petrhead not giving Bar a moment to breathe as they fling their way through the turns 2, 3 and 4 again. A very tricky sector to get right because of the understeer in these cars, and the fact that all three of these drivers are on controllers as well. So trying to get that angle-to-angle lock coming through there is very difficult to do, but they've all managed to survive for the first 12 laps at least. And Astro getting, I believe he did get punted wide there by myself, so I think I did just outbrake into that corner, into the hairpin, which is quite easily done. There is quite a lot of action down there. But already, with the teamwork between myself and Razor, we have managed to catch up to the back of the Supra, and he takes quite an unusually wide line there. Normally you do just straighten up the run down to the next corner through this section. But Astro very much under pressure now from myself. I believe I'm trying to look for the outside line. I don't think there really was much confidence to go for a late braking manoeuvre there. But Superboy, I don't know if he's had an incident somewhere, but he's lost a load of time on that lap. He's actually looking in the mirrors now to see where Mike is. Mike putting that charge in after the incident that he had earlier on in the race. He's putting a charge on to try and regain any time that he has lost through incidents occurring early on in the race. And Petrad has just made his way up into second place. I think that was down the start-finish straight, where he's managed to get a superior exit and pulled around the outside of the 1010 Supra. So Petrad back up into second place, and he's going to try and get back to where he started this race from. but I believe this will probably be his hardest overtake of the race, because Doug Barrow, probably the best driver in the field in terms of defensive maneuvers, as we cut to myself going very deep into that hairpin again. So potentially trying a bit of a dive bomb maneuver to try and unsettle Astro up front, and it hasn't quite paid off on that lap. But I am still in the slipstream looking for that overtake into the Kinks, and a quickly cut back to these guys who were in a significantly more significant battle for the lead. Petrad pulling to the outside to try and swoop around the outside. He does actually almost get ahead. He did try and turn in for the apex, expecting that Doug wouldn't be as late on the brakes as he was, but he can't quite pull it off. So Doug Barrett holding the inside line for the bus stop, and Petrol's compromised line actually allows Barr to swoop back through. So very opportunistic driving from Barr there to take back the P2, as he wants to be the one attacking Doug. He wants to be the first one there. As soon as Doug makes that hypothetical mistake, if it is going to happen, he wants to be the one to capitalize on that position. He has gone a little bit wide of the apex there, so Petrol just tucking in for tighter lines through these long sweeping corners. It's very difficult to get the line right, as I mentioned, and you can just see Petrol head there very much able to take a tighter line. We're going to ride on board with the Team Rad Supra coming down to the hairpin again. Not close enough this time for an overtake, but you can just see the different lines as well, the different approach. Petrad taking a bit of an earlier exit than Barr, whereas Barr trying to prioritise exit speed, and it has worked quite well for him. He has managed to bridge a bit of a gap, so I don't think he's going to be under pressure on this lap as it stands. And as I mentioned, just trying to outmaneuver a guy who's driving the same car as you is quite difficult here, because you can see they've all got very similar straight line speeds. Obviously the car in third will have the best straight line speed because it's got the slipstream of a car that is another slipstream. But yeah, you can just see that the battle is at a stalemate on this lap, just because it's so difficult to get that advantage over the drivers. However, Barr, as I mentioned, putting himself in the hot seat for an overtake against Doug, as he has had a very good lap here, scraping the wall, coming through the final corner. But they're all searching for that slipstream. Barr pulling out a little bit early there, just to try and choose the side of the track that he wants for this overtake. I don't think it's quite going to come off around the outside. He gets very close to pulling it off, but it's just not really a place you see overtakes like that happen. And it was a very good effort, but Doug Barrow just hanging on for another sector here. But he will be definitely under pressure again, as Barr seemingly a lot closer than what he was on the previous lap. We're going to quickly cut back to the battle for best of the rest here in P4. Astro still managing to hold off the attacks of myself. Having said that, I now dive up the inside of the hairpin. But there is a bit of wheel spin, a bit of wall contact, and I have now spun the car in my attempts to try and overtake that Supra. Razor, I think, just about managed to get around the car as it pivoted on the barrier. But once again, another setback for my race, where it's just not been my day, unfortunately, for the amount of crashes that have happened. It is not over yet, though. Still just about less than half of the race still to go. So it's time to get my head down and try and recover that lost time. So Barr now, as we were watching that incident at the hairpin, Barr using that slipstream to pull ahead of Doug Barrow to take the lead of the race. So our third different race leader of the race, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think this is our third different race leader. So as is expected in GTRC, there are plenty of battles, plenty of lead changes, and Petrad now taking advantage of Doug Barrow's setback, having a look up the inside of turn one. Nothing quite doing as of yet. Doug actually using the outside line to his advantage there, just to take a more swooping line, carry a bit of speed on the outside of the corner. And even though Barr has taken the lead, he can definitely not breathe easy. These two have followed him extremely closely to try and get that slipstream. Doug Barrow launching it down the inside, trying to upset the positioning of Barr's car there. Barr getting all out of shape with a little bit of contact. I don't think there'll be any damage from that. But Doug Barrow, a very good attempt just to try and unsettle the confidence of Barr there, trying to make him feel a bit uneasy. and Doug Barrow very close here for an overtake. I think he is going to try and hold off for a late braking manoeuvre. Bar being forced there onto a tight line coming through the kinks, which is not ideal in the slightest. Doug Barrow pulling again for the outside line as they head up the hill. And I think Bar just has that one covered. Petrohead seemingly giving a little bit of a golden opportunity there, as all this fighting is just really keeping him close. Even though he's not been quite had the best opportunities as it stands to have an attack for the lead, he does have quite a good advantage in the fact that he's just waiting for this battle to kick off. And at the moment, he could actually save a little bit of tyre wear as it stands. He could be trying to just keep his tyres in check a little bit. Having said that, he's already back down the inside of Doug Barrow into turn one. So Doug seemingly always compromised coming through turn one, which seems to be his Achilles heel as it stands, because everyone else is taking advantage of that. As we cut now to Astro and Razor, just running their own race at the moment. No battles commencing between the pair of these drivers. And even though I had the crash only a couple of minutes ago, I've managed to move my way back up into P6. So it is definitely not over for my race. I can still make up a few positions. Same for Mike, who has spent the whole race trying to recover the positions that he lost through contact. And just to give you a bit of a race rundown as well, we've still got Simon running around in 9th place, with TDC in 10th and Happy Pappy in 11th. A pit stop. It doesn't look like from the condition of his tyres or the fuel. I think he has just had a few setbacks, which is unfortunate, but he is also a sub-in for this race. But it's nice to see that we have got quite a few members of GTRC racing this weekend, as Bar going very wide in the chicane, losing the back end as well as he clipped the wall with the rear tyre there, and that puts Petrol in good stead. So Petrol up into 2nd place, Doug being shuffled back down to 3rd. So Petrol having a bit of wheel contact as they head into turn 1, but Bar just braking late, just cutting off that attack. But there is a slight contact on the rear quarter of the pink Supra, and I don't know if that was down to lag or whether Petrol just misjudged his turning for the corner, but I think that was a bit of a push to pass if I'm being honest. But Bar definitely not out of the picture, and it's definitely not race threatening, that contact, so he's still in the frame for a potential win, as there is even more contact. So Doug Barrow sensing his opportunity to take 2 cars in one corner there, as Petrohead is seemingly getting shuffled wide, as he just wasn't expecting 2 cars to be on his inside at that corner. And we do see Superboy, the first driver this race to make an unscheduled pit stop. So I believe this is for a fastest lap attempt, as he saw that he had enough of a gap actually to pit and come out ahead of Simon. It is a very short pit lane around this track. So Superboy in the best handling car and on fresh tyres. I believe he is going for a fastest lap attempt here. He could even catch up to the back of myself and Mike if he gets the hammer down, because the older tyres right now are really making the drivers suffer out there. So as we come round to start lap 19, approaching half an hour into the race, and Doug Barrow, having seemingly had a bit of a kerfuffle with the 2 drivers behind him to be shuffled back into P3, is now taking his opportunity with both hands, moved himself back up into the lead, with Petrolhead still circulating in P2, with Bar on the podium. And whichever order that these drivers finish in on the podium, I think they can all be very happy with their races, because they've all done stellar jobs to either make up for lost time or take opportunities where they have presented themselves. And I think all 3 of these drivers fully deserve the podium as it stands, because they've put on quite the show for us as well. And just in the background as well, I have noticed that Razor is actually closing in on Astro for a potential overtake. He's just been chipping away slightly. He has set his fastest lap of the race, his personal best fastest lap, quite recently, only 5 laps ago. And he does have that slipstream now. We're coming down to turn 6. So Razor again trying to choose which way he wants to launch the attack. I don't think he's quite close enough here. Razor not too confident in this car, as he expressed a couple of times coming into the season. He's just not quite close enough for a manoeuvre, and he's not feeling as comfortable in this GTR. It's not really to his handling preferences really. Bar now back down into Bar still back into P3. I think there was a bit of a brief position change, but Petrohead just maintaining that second place at the moment. All three drivers, they're going deep into turn one, so as I mentioned, all struggling with that front tyre wear. There aren't too many traction zones. There's only really 2 traction zones on the lap. Everything else is a medium speed corner or a high speed kink. So the rear tyres do not take as much punishment as the fronts. So we're going to ride on board with the rear of the Supra. Razor now diving his way up the inside of the hairpin. It's going to be side by side coming out of the hairpin. I do believe Astro will have a little bit of better traction, and he does. He gets the wider line, the better traction on the outside to just straighten up the exit of the corner, but the battle is not done yet. Razor bum drafting Astro coming down the back straight, so he's not fancying his chances into the kink as it stands, again with another bump draft. So as they come into the tunnel, Razor into the barriers, and has that caused him damage? Yes, it has. So Razor with front end damage, just in the through understeer and the extra speed that the car in front of him was carrying, it just dragged him into the wall there, not expecting the downforce to be so weak. So I have now moved back up into P5 of the race, and we have got a crash as Bar is in the wall. So from a podium position, he's now dropped down to 6th. That has been terrible luck for him after such a good start to the race, such a good first 2/3 of the race, and it's almost got undone for him. He could actually still get into that could actually still get his podium back, as he's only a couple of seconds behind myself, as Astro and myself now swap positions. So on that lap, a very good lap for myself as I move up 2 positions to get back onto the podium, which is where I was on lap 1. So it's been a long time, it's been a lot of work and a long time coming that I have managed to pull my finger out and get back into that position. But it is by no means set in stone, as there are 5 drivers. Yep, the 5 drivers in contention for a podium position. 5 drivers covered by just about 2.5 seconds, it looks like. So this is pretty much anyone's game at the moment. Bar did have some rear end damage, so presumably he did lose the back end coming through coming over the second sausage curb and just backing the car into the wall at the final chicane. But that damage has now been eradicated, so his car is now back up to full performance. But he has got Mike on the outside of him, pulling out the slipstream to take P6. So this race is all about those who can capitalise on the others who make mistakes. The 2 Supras wheel banging there, door handle to door handle racing, and Bar actually getting the better exit coming through turn 6, back down the inside for the final chicane. So Bar maintaining that position for the time being. Razor again looking, despite having that crash earlier on, he is now looking for another overtake against Astro, another attempt just to see if he can make it a Nissan GTR 3rd and 4th. And we need to check back with these 2 actually, because Doug Barrow has been passed for the lead of the race. So there's just so much going on in this race as it stands. Petrohead managing to take his opportunity whilst Bar was backwards in the barrier to make his way up into the lead of the race once again. Doug Barrow still tucking in for some slipstream there. He is quite far back though, so I don't think he's going to be able to launch the attack into the kink, or even indeed turn 6 on this lap. I don't think he's got enough straight underneath that car to really have a look. And Bar now setting his sights on making up for lost time. Razor potentially making a mistake coming into the hairpin on that lap, because he's lost all that ground he had gained getting up to the back of Astro. And now Bar just hugging the bumper of that GTR coming through turns turn 6. Slightly grazing the wall on the outside. This is all about pushing track limits at this point. We've only got just over 10.5 minutes left in the race. So as we start lap 23 now, Doug just keeping Petrol honest at the moment. I believe Petrol does have a little bit more pace at the moment, as Doug Barrow does seem to struggle a little bit more on the older tyres. And Astro diving up the inside into turn 1 to take the position off myself. So Astro swapping the podium positions around once again. I think this has probably been one of the most frantic and exciting podium battles we've ever had in GTRC, because it's just not staying the same for more than 3 laps. Every single time there's an opportunity for someone to overtake, there is going to be an overtake. And Bar moving his way back up ahead of Razor in the background there. So Razor now under pressure from Mike. So the Supra is seemingly coming good at the end, despite all the things going wrong for certain drivers. They are still coming good at the end. And as they fly now through the tunnel once again, and I don't think that Supra's quite got the legs, as I now have a look up the inside of Astro coming through turn 6. A very big pinch on the inside wall there. There just about wasn't any contact, but Astro leaving a car's width and nothing more there. Been on the back of the lead for ages now. Well, not on the back of it, he's been in the lead pretty much for half an hour in this race, and I don't think he's got any intention of giving it up in the die moments of the race. So Bar now setting his sights on myself, squaring off the exit in the corner, taking a wide line round the hairpin just to get the better exit speed, and Mike pulling out already in the traction zone to pull side by side with Hair Razor coming down the back straight, and both drivers giving each other plenty of room there, not wanting any contact, don't want to throw it away as they're so close to the finish. But actually, Mike backing off there, not wanting the outside line, which is quite sensible. You don't want to be squeezed into the outside wall there. And fighting their way through the final chicane. This battle for P3 is still disputed between 2 Supras and a GTR. So despite the fact that the NSX coming into this race was considered to be the best overall car, it is nowhere in terms of on-track pace here. I think that is because it is such a straight line speed track that the NSX does just quite struggle in most sectors of the lap. This is pretty much, this first sector is the only section of the lap where it is really going to benefit that NSX. So yeah, it's just not been the day for the NSX drivers, unfortunately. So those front engine cars that do have a little bit more grunt at the top end speed are the favoured cars for this race. And I think there was a little bit of wall contact from myself coming out of the hairpin there. So pushing the limits all the way as we enter the final race, and you can just see the battle scars in the front of my GTR. It has been a pretty eventful race from all drivers, I think it has to be said. And I think there was a bit of a bump draft there. A very tight line though, almost hitting the wall on the outside there. A little bit like the Wall of Champions at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, if you're aware of that track. It is very much a hang on for dear life kind of corner where you have to run that wall so close to get the maximum amount of speed. And having said that, I think there was a little bit of a squeeze from Astro as he squeezed me into the wall, and there's been another bit of contact. So the entire front end of my car has been damaged in that crash, and once again through driver error I am back down into a lower position, promoting Bar back up into P4. So the same corner where Bar made his mistake, it has now benefited him. So another man's pain is another man's happiness, I guess, because it is just swings and roundabouts as it at the moment as to who's making a mistake in that chicane, because we've seen so many people go off there. we have just clocked the final 5 minutes of the race. And interestingly enough, Petrolhead has a half a second penalty. So we will have to serve that on the start-finish straight, but that is really going to give Doug Barrett a faint chance now. Despite losing a little bit of time coming through the final 10 minutes just gone, and losing a little bit of time just through the last 8 laps or so, this is actually going to give him a chance now to take the lead back, because, and I think he has seen that, because he's absolutely thrown the car over that final chicane, getting all out of shape, and he's actually given himself a track limits penalty. So it was looking so good as the drivers come across the line to finish the race. So Petrol wins the race with Doug Barrett in P2. Astro comes across the line in P4 with myself in Astro in P3, myself in P4, Razor in P5, Mike in P6, and I believe Bart has crashed at the final chicane. So he comes across the line in P7, so that actually caught me off guard because I thought it was a 45-minute race. It's not, it's a 40-minute race. So it ended a little bit earlier, which is a little bit disappointing because I was really enjoying all the battles. Superboy comes across the line in P8, and he is successful in his attempts for fastest lap, with Simon rounding out the finishers on the lead lap to get P9, with TDC and Happy Pappy in 10th and 11th respectively. And with that, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you for round 2.